Sisters in Islam and brothers and sisters in humanity, God bless you all. There are several topics for tonight's talk. The first topic is that which was announced last night by Haji Vanjur, that I'll first of all speak on the Ascension of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and then after that I have to take up the questions which were presented last night and about which unfortunately there was not enough time for a reply from my side. In connection with the Mairaj or the Ascension of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, there are certain facts which have got to be taken into consideration. And we are directed towards these facts by the verses of the Holy Quran in which this event has been mentioned. The Holy Quran says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا. Here the function of Miraj or of the Ascension of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the purpose of Miraj has been mentioned in the words لنريه من آياتنا, in order that God may cause him to observe his signs. And wherever in the Holy Quran the word ayat is used, the ayat or the signs of God, this expression implies acquisition of knowledge. There is another passage in the Holy Quran where the event of Miraj has been mentioned, and it is in Surah An-Najm. There we are told, وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى عَلَّمَهُ شَدِيدُ الْقُوَى ذُو مِرَّةٍ فَاسْتَوَى وَهُوَ بِالْأُفُقِ الْأَعْلَى ثُمَّ دَنَا فَتَدَلَّى فَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى فَأَوْحَى إِلَى عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْحَى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى أفتمارونه على ما يرى ولقد رآه نزلة أخرى عند سدرة المنتهى عندها جنة المأوى إذ يخشى السدرة ما يخشى ما زاغ البصر وما طغى لقد رأى من آيات ربه الكبرى. When we try to understand the quest of mankind as to what is the highest goal of mankind, what is the highest pursuit which has been there before mankind, we find that the highest pursuit has been the pursuit of acquisition of perfection. Every human being is an evolutionary being, and it is in the very nature of the constitution of the human being that he should always pursue, so long as he is true to his nature, the path of perfection, the path of removing the imperfections that are to be found in his personality. In this connection, the guiding light for the human beings is their reason, and the basis for perfection is knowledge. Whatever the field in which the human beings want to pursue the path of perfection, it is only through knowledge that they can acquire it. That perfection which has been acquired by the human beings up to this time in the field of technology, in the field of the conquest of nature, in the field of the conquest of environment, has been based entirely and purely on the quest for knowledge. The more they have advanced in the field of knowledge, the more the human beings have been able to conquer those limitations which are to be found in their own persons and in the environment around them. These two facts are self-evident. That the pursuit of humanity or the highest yearning of human beings is the ideal of perfection, and that this ideal can be achieved only on the basis of knowledge. I am saying this in order to bring into broad relief the implications which are to be found in the event of Ascension of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. What was the need for the Holy Prophet ﷺ to be called into the high heavens and to go beyond this earth and to travel across the entire universe. What was the need for it? Was it just a pastime? Was it just a spiritual phenomenon? Or had it any goal to be achieved and any guidance to be given to entire mankind in connection with the destiny which all human beings should pursue? When we cast a glance at this problem from this point of view, we find that the implication of the Mairaj was to give knowledge to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the knowledge of this universe as a whole. And through knowledge, to take the Holy Prophet ﷺ's personality to the highest pitch of perfection. These are the implications which are contained in these verses. But the question arises in the minds of many human beings, in the minds even of many Muslims, that probably the event of Miraj did not take place in the sense in which it is believed in by the Muslims. There are people among the Muslims who try to emphasize that the Mairaj or the Ascension of the Holy Prophet ﷺ was only a spiritual experience, and no such thing as travel across the universe happened. And they believe in this because they believe that such an event is impossible. Because they believe that whatever they know, according to it, any such story should be regarded as mere superstition. That to travel in the strata of space and to traverse the entire universe. Those who say this may be very, very sincere in what they believe. But so far as the human knowledge goes, to regard this event as a superstition or to regard this event as a mere spiritual experience or a spiritual vision is to detract from truth as well as from reality. This event might not have been understandable by those who lived in those ages when there was a notion about matter, that matter is something which cannot violate those laws which were commonly known about it at that time. It was thought that the physical personality of the human being cannot fly into space, cannot withstand the impact of the changing laws of nature which a human being who goes into space must come across. And consequently, this problem was debated, and it was asserted that to believe that this Mairaj could take place is a sort of impossibility. But today, in modern physics, the notion about the nature of matter has changed completely. That notion of matter, which was to be found up to the end of the 19th century, it has changed. Now, it is said that everything in this world which exists is composed of certain electronic particles, and the different things which are to be found at different levels of existence, whether they are found in the form of gases or they are found in the form of liquids or they are found in the form of solids, are originally constituted of the same basic electronic particles. And it is only the order and the arrangement of those particles which gives us the different things. Today it is said that the notion of matter, that it is something which is eternal, it is something which is indestructible, it is something which is such a mass that it cannot take the form of energy. This notion has been wiped off. Today modern physics says that all matter is ultimately antimatter. They say that if you subject any piece of matter, whether you take sodium or phosphorus or magnesium or gold or iron, today the scientists say that if you subject any piece of matter to what is called by them the physical analysis, if you try to analyze matter into its component parts, anything which you might take, you will have to pass through a process from solid to liquid, from liquid to gas, then to molecules, then to atoms, then to electronic particles, the lightweight particles and the intermediate weight particles, then after that vibrations of light, and then after that antimatter. And you can convert this antimatter, which you have arrived in the process of physical analysis, when you go into the reverse order, then antimatter becomes vibrations of light, and the vibrations of light assume the form of the electronic particles, and the electronic particles assume the form of the atom, and the atom assumes the form of the molecules, and the molecules ultimately assume the form of gas, and the gas ultimately assumes the form of liquid, and the liquid ultimately assumes the form of solid. So all matter is actually, in its origin and basis, in its essence, and its foundation, antimatter. And it exists at different levels. For instance, H2O is water, as we know it. It is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But H2O is ice, H2O is water, H2O is vapor. H2O as ice is solid, H2O as water is liquid, H2O as vapor is gas. It remains the same H2O, but the moment it changes its forms, the laws of its being change. The law of H2O as solid is that it cannot move unless it is moved by something else. The law of H2O as liquid is that it must move if it gets a level which is lower from that level where it exists. The law of the gas is that it must move upwards and must disperse unless it is contained by something. These are three different laws acting on the same thing, governing the same thing, which is H2O. And when this H2O is reduced into its atomic form, the atoms of the hydrogen and the atoms of oxygen separate. And when those atoms are further analyzed and reduced into the electronic particles, the lightweight and intermediate weight particles, then the laws change again. And when they are further reduced into vibrations of light, then the laws change again. And when they are reduced to antimatter, there is a different set of laws which governs antimatter. Speaking in terms of the layman who is a student of science, just try to think why this name antimatter has been given. Why this name antimatter has been given? Naturally, the antimatter can be only that thing where the properties of matter are negated. Matter has certain properties: mass, weight, area, volume, density, specific gravity, color, direction, and so on. These are the properties of matter. When we consider the event of Mairaj on the basis of these properties of matter, then doubts arise, how could it take place? But if everything is matter and antimatter at one and the same time, the only problem is to reduce that thing into antimatter while that thing remains the same. And the moment it is reduced to antimatter or to vibrations of light, the laws are different. And especially I am emphasizing here the word antimatter. In antimatter, mass, weight, density, area, volume, specific gravity, direction, color, all these things vanish. And consequently, the limitation which is found in the case of the notion of matter is completely reversed when we understand matter as antimatter. On the basis of this theory of modern physics, this entire universe is composed of antimatter. It is antimatter which has unfolded itself, or it has evolved, we might say. It has passed through a process of evolution. I call it the process of tangibility. Antimatter assuming tangibility at different levels. The first level is that of vibrations of light, the second level is that of the lightweight and intermediate weight particles, the third level is that of the atom, and the fourth level is that it is becoming more and more tangible. All this proves that what the people say, that this is impossible and that is impossible for things to happen, on the notion that matter is not antimatter in its origin and basis. It is a view of an illiterate person, of a person who does not know what the nature of matter is. Now when we consider the case of the Holy Prophet ﷺ's ascension, we are told clearly that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was taken on his journey of the universe on a vehicle The vehicle is termed Barak. Barak in Arabic means an electrically propelled vehicle. Try to imagine 1400 years ago, when electricity and its functions were unknown, when the very concept of an electrically propelled vehicle was impossible. The story of the Mairaj gives this conception of the electrically propelled vehicle, that it was an electrically propelled vehicle which carried the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ from the earth into the higher regions. That electrically propelled vehicle was not made here. It had come from outer space. And for anybody to say that how could it come from outer space is to say too much. We don't know what is there in outer space. And consequently, we have absolutely no right to deny the existence of anything in outer space. We can deny things only in that region which we know. We can say something about the earth and not even about the earth as a whole. Because the human knowledge about the earth, even about the earth where the human beings live, is very limited. The human beings have not yet encompassed every region of the earth. And they do not know what might be found where they have not yet reached. But to say about the outer space, I am not yet talking about the almightiness of God, that God is all-powerful. Naturally, on this basis, logically, everything is possible. But I am talking in terms of human thought and in terms of human understanding only. We do not know what things are to be found in outer space. The story tells us that an electrically propelled vehicle came from outer space, and the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ traveled on that electrically propelled vehicle. We have been told in this connection of the Miraj that when this Miraj started, when this event started, when it began, Angel Jibreel alayhi salam performed an operation on the heart of the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Is it a fiction or has it any meaning? I think it has a great meaning. I think this operation symbolizes the transformation of the spatio-temporal level of the existence of the Holy Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam into a higher level. Just as in modern physics we can transform a piece of metal into atoms or anything else, it was a similar process to which the personality of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was subjected under the orders of God, and the dimensions of his personality were changed, or the level of his personality was changed. It was no more the spatio-temporal physical personality. It had been reduced into its final form, but the personality remained, as I have told you in the case of H2O. It was transformed to another level, where it could withstand all the impacts of different laws which are to be found in nature, and where it could cross the barriers this flesh and bones may not be able to do. But once the level of existence is changed, once the constitution of a person is changed, it can withstand the impact of all those barriers that are there. And this is again a scientific fact which has been included in the story of the Mairaj. Consequently, on this basis, to try to say or to try to think that we should not believe in what is called the Mairaj with the entire personality, that we should consider about it that it was merely a spiritual vision, is to deny all the advance in human knowledge. It is possible. The only thing is that I can't do it, or the other human beings cannot do it. But God Almighty can do it. He who has created this entire universe, and consequently there is absolutely no ground for being skeptical in connection with understanding the ascension of the Holy Prophet ﷺ with his full personality. And remember one more thing. In this story there are very nice distinctions even in connection with the vehicle. It is said that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was carried from the earth in an electrically propelled vehicle in the Barak. Then later on, when he reached the farther regions of this universe, this vehicle was changed. It was changed to rough there is another name of a vehicle which has been given. I would say it is the same concept with which we come across today, that the aeroplanes in which we fly daily are not capable of taking us to the moon. When we have got to go to the moon, we must have another type of vehicle, in spite of the fact that the function of both of these vehicles is the same, to fly into the atmosphere. So that electrically propelled vehicle, which was sent from outer space to the earth by God Almighty, had to be changed when the conditions changed. It was not possible for that vehicle to go beyond a certain place in this universe. And the other vehicle was given, and it was called Raf. We may imagine, we may try to understand the nature of the second vehicle by trying to understand the difference between the structure and the fuel which is used in the first instance in the aeroplanes, and in the second instance in those rockets which go to the moon. The fuel which is used in those rockets which go to the moon is not the same. It is not petrol which is used there. It is an atomic fuel built expressly for that purpose and capable of carrying a rocket to such long distances through such changing atmospheres and conditions of space. In the same manner, the Barak was an electrically propelled vehicle. The Raf was probably atomically. It carried a finer fuel. Its structure and design was of the finer variety, capable of carrying the Holy Prophet ﷺ to the farther regions. And then this story says that a stage arrived in this journey when the Barak, not only the Barak was left behind, but also Raf had to be left behind. Then Jibreel alayhi salam, who is the archangel and whose abode is in the celestial regions, near the throne of God, what is called throne of God or Arsh, there arrived a stage when he too refused to go beyond that. He said, I can't go because my personality cannot bear the impact of the forces of nature which are found here. And then only the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had to proceed alone and have the audience with God. Here again a question may arise, because as I said yesterday night, this age is the age of doubt. Doubts are all the time arising in the minds of human beings. Here a doubt may arise again, and I must clarify it. Is the personality of God fixed up and focused somewhere? Is God like a finite personality that is still somewhere beyond this earth or beyond these regions and beyond this universe? Is God a finite being that the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had to go all the way from here to meet him? Or if God is everywhere, then what is the meaning that he went to have audience with God outside of this universe? This is a question which can arise, and I wish to clarify it. The personality of God, I will say God, according to the Holy Quran, is everywhere. There are two philosophical interpretations of this. One is that God is transcendental in his being and immanent in the universe through his knowledge and power. That is one thing. The other interpretation of it is that God is non-spatial and non-temporal. God is in his nature different entirely from everything that is to be found here. And all the concepts that we have about the mind and the soul and the body and time and space do not apply to God. And we are accustomed to conceive the existence of things in connection with their tangibility or in connection with the field of their function. But if God is not conceived as resembling anything which we know, if God is conceived as something different entirely, then this question will not arise, and there will be no need for us to say that God is transcendent in his being and immanent through his knowledge and power. God is not a body. God is not physical, and God is not spiritual, and God is not psychical. God is constituted of something which we do not know and which we cannot know. Here, in the finitude of our experience. We believe that He is everywhere and He is equally everywhere. How? We do not know, because that is beyond the category of understanding, beyond all categories of understanding with which we are in contact here. The Holy Prophet ﷺ went to the Arsh. What is Al-Arsh? It is translated as the throne of God. There is the word Al-Arsh and there is the word Al-Kursi, or the chair, used for God. What is the meaning of these terms? What is the implication of these terms? The real implication of these terms is, in accordance with what we have been told in the Holy Quran concerning the nature and being of God, that the Arsh is that point in the universe from where God administers this entire universe, where the radiations of His personality are focused, and from where He governs this universe. Because this universe He has made as a universe of law. And because it is a reign of law, because it is an order based on law, it must have a central point from where it should be governed. It may be called the central switchboard for this entire universe. That is the Arsh. Because the Arsh is that point where God Almighty's, the radiations of His personality are concentrated. Therefore, the most intimate experience of God can also be at that place. And it was to provide the Holy Prophet ﷺ with the most intimate experience of God that he was taken from here to the Arsh. It was not that God is not present here, or God is not present there, or God was not there in the Kaaba, or God was not there in Medina or in Mecca. He was there all the time, and He is there all the time, and He will be there all the time. But it was to provide the intimacy of experience for an experiencing person who is a finite being and who can acquire the intimacy of experience only on the principle of fixation and not vagueness. So where in this universe the radiations of the personality of God are concentrated, that is at the Arsh, that point where this universe ends, the Holy Prophet ﷺ was called there. He was also called there because, according to the first verse which I read out, because the function of the Mairaj was to show God's science to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, to impart the knowledge of this universe entirely, of this entire universe to the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So he was made to traverse this entire universe. As the Holy Prophet ﷺ himself has said, and as modern science says, that knowledge is that which is based on observation. The Holy Prophet ﷺ's proclamation is, لَيْسَ الْخَبَرُ كَالْمُعَايَنَةِ. A report is not of the same value as observation in the field of knowledge. A person gets some knowledge from some other body that such and such thing is like this. But that will be actually a report for this particular person to whom this knowledge has been imparted. It may be correct, but for a person to have knowledge, he should have observation of that thing. And the sharper and the more comprehensive the observation, the more correct will be the knowledge of that person about that object. So here the Holy Prophet ﷺ was provided with the opportunity of acquiring the knowledge of this universe on the basis of first-hand observation. That was the function of Mairaj. And it was a necessary condition of the role of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. He came as the divine teacher for the whole of mankind and for all time to come. He came as the most perfect embodiment of divine guidance. He got that knowledge which is imparted to us in the Holy Quran on the basis of report, on the basis of the communication which was brought in the terminology of Islamic theology by the Archangel Gabriel. But in order that he should attain his perfection as a divine teacher, as I said that the quest of every human being is towards perfection, In order that he should acquire that perfection as a divine teacher, it was absolutely essential that he should have been provided with this opportunity of making an observation of the entire universe himself and coming into the most intimate experience with God. This is the rationale of the Mairaj, and in this connection, the Holy Prophet ﷺ came to inaugurate this modern scientific era. Those who have read the history of science will have to admit this fact, that the inaugurator of the modern scientific era was no other than the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This fact has been admitted even by those who are non-Muslims, and in spite of the fact that there has been immense prejudice against Islam in the West, and the Western writers have most often tried to be most uncharitable to Islam. There have been historians of science in the West like George Sarton in America and Robert Briffault in Europe, who have affirmed and proclaimed this fact. For instance, Robert Briffault says in his book, The Making of Humanity, he says that pre-Quranic science, the pre-Islamic science was not pure science. He uses the word, the pre-Islamic science was pre-scientific. These are his words. And by pre-scientific he means that there was no pure science. Chemistry was combined with magic. Physics was combined with metaphysics. Medicine was combined with talismans and superstitions. There was no pure science. And this author, Briffault, says that it was not possible for the pre-Islamic scholars of science to cultivate pure science because they did not possess the scientific method. There are two methods of inquiry. One is called the deductive method and the other is called the inductive method. It is the inductive method of inquiry which is the scientific method, and Briffault admits that among all the books which are known in history, it is the Quran which is the first book that gave this inductive or the scientific method of inquiry. The Holy Prophet Muhammad thus gave the scientific method and laid the foundations of the scientific era which was to dawn after him. And he did not only this. He not only gave the scientific method, but he actually charted the course of science. And he placed the scientific pursuit, the pursuit in the realm of physical sciences, on an extremely high level, making it an act of worship for a Muslim. Read the Holy Quran, and you will find that the Holy Quran defines a comprehensive and perfect Muslim on the basis of two qualities at one place. The first is ulil albab alladhina yazkuruna Allah qiyaman wa qu'udan wa ala junubihim wa yatafakkaruna fi khalqi as-samawati wal ard rabbana ma khalaqta hadha batila subhanaka faqina adhaban nar. The Holy Quran, and you will find that the Holy Quran defines a comprehensive and perfect Muslim on the basis of two qualities at one place. The first is ulil albab alladhina yazkuruna Allah qiyaman wa qu'udan wa ala junubihim wa yatafakkaruna fi khalqi as-samawati wal ard rabbana ma khalaqta hadha batila subhanaka faqina adhaban nar. Those among the believers who are wise, who are persons of understanding, their qualities are that they remember God standing and sitting and reclining. That is, in all moments of their life, that is their first quality. They orientate their life in God consciousness. Then the second quality is وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, and they investigate into the mysteries of the constitution of the heavenly bodies and the earth. And then alone they arrive at that comprehensive conviction, which is a conviction on the basis of knowledge, when they proclaim God's glory and the immense possibilities of knowledge that are to be found in this world itself. In the words they say, Subhanak, Rabbana ma khalaqta hadha batila, Subhanak, faqina adhaban nar. O Lord, thou hast not created anything here in vain, anything here purposeless or meaningless. There is a system of meaning in everything, and there are laws hidden here in everything. And those alone who investigate these laws and try to unravel the mysteries of nature, as they are called, they alone are capable of understanding the beauty of God's creation and of God's majesty. In the Quran, the natural phenomena have been mentioned not at one place but at numerous places. And the Quran is the first book among all the religious books of mankind, which places science, the pursuit of physical science, on the highest level. For instance, in Surah Fatir, there is a verse which says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Those who are possessors of knowledge, they alone are capable of understanding the majesty of God. But this verse comes at the end of other verses where the Quran mentions different natural phenomena. The section begins with the words, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَتُصْبِحُ الْأَرْضُ مُخْضَرَّةً. It starts by mentioning this phenomenon of rain, as to how the clouds form and how the rain falls, and how the foliage grows on the earth. Then it goes on to mention the phenomena concerning geology. مِنَ الْجِبَالِ. Among the mountains are mountains of such type and such type and such type. Some are black and some are white, and then they have got their strata and their layers. Then it mentions the phenomenon concerning anthropology, when it speaks about the animal life, and finally it seals all this with this verse, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Here the ulama, or the scholars who have been mentioned, are not the scholars of fiqh, are not the scholars of hadith, are not the scholars of theology. The scholars who have been mentioned here are those scholars who pursue knowledge in the field of physical sciences. Because it is all the natural phenomena which have been mentioned before mentioning this, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. It was the Holy Prophet ﷺ, when we turn to the hadiths, it was the Holy Prophet ﷺ who, among all the founders of religion, proclaimed the value of knowledge as the highest, when he said, the blood of the martyr is holier, the ink of the scholar is holier than the blood of the martyr. It was he who said that 1 hour's pursuit of knowledge is better than 40 days devotional prayer. It was he who said, اطلبوا العلم ولو كان بالصين. Acquire knowledge from every nook and corner of this globe, wherever it is found, even though it is found among those who are non-Muslims, who don't believe in those values for which Islam stands. It was he who said, Al-hikmatu da'allatul mu'min. Every piece of wisdom is like the lost property of the believer. It was he who commanded the Muslims, اطلبوا العلم من المهدي إلى اللحد. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. It was he who made it the law of his community. طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة. The acquisition and cultivation of knowledge is an obligation, is a mandatory obligation on every Muslim man and woman. He gave this charter. He placed knowledge at the highest level. And in this manner, he laid the foundations of this modern scientific era. And as the father of this modern scientific era, it was necessary that the event of Mairaj should have taken place in his life. The era which he was founding, the era of pursuit of physical science and the development of technology. This era which he was founding, in this era, the human beings were to fly into space. And he was the highest in God's creation. He is the leader of God's creation. He should himself have flown. He should have himself gone into space. And as the leader of God's creation, he should have gone into space to a limit which is the farthest and beyond which there is, and where this world ends. So it was his role as the leader of mankind, as the highest in God's creation, to show the way to mankind for whom he had come to show the path of religion, to show them the way, to go there first into space, so that when mankind invents the airplanes and the rockets, they may be his followers and he may not be a person who is behind them. The doubts about Miraj, as I pointed out in the beginning, could have been possible when these phenomena which we are witnessing now had not taken place. The flight of human beings into space is a daily occurrence all over the earth. And now the human beings have landed on the moon, and this landing on the moon is to be followed by landing on Venus, by landing on other planets, and we do not know how far this progress will go until this world lasts. The only difference is that in the case of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the vehicle had come from outer space, while in the case of the human beings who are going now into space, the vehicles are made here on the earth. He traveled in a vehicle. We are traveling in vehicles. To doubt the travel of human beings into space is impossible now. And consequently, there should be absolutely no doubt what the Muslims have believed all these 1400 years. What they have believed unanimously, that the Mairaj of the Holy Prophet ﷺ took place with its entire and full personality, that it was not a mere spiritual vision, something which he was all the time having as a prophet of God. It was a unique event, not only in his life, but also in the life of mankind. And it was an event which had the implications of the inauguration of this modern scientific era in which human beings are scaling the heights of progress in a manner in which it was conceivable before the advent. It was inconceivable prior to the advent of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I end the topic here because there are several other topics on which I have to speak.